Okay, so welcome. Prop wise for today, quite a few items. So a couple of massage balls. If you happen to have, yoga tune-up balls, that's great. But tennis balls also work, and you just want to have them in a sock that you cannot, or if you have tune-up balls, then they come in a little tote, which is perfect. As well as a strap or a scarf, a couple of blocks, a blanket, and a bolster, or whatever you're using instead of those items these days. And we're going to start with the balls in your tote, and you can take one of your blocks at the head of your mat and place it on its lowest setting, its widest width, and you're going to place the balls on top of that. You're going to lay back so that the balls are catching you right at the base of your skull. Okay, so right where the base of your skull basically meets your neck is where you're going to lay down. And as you land there, you'll find that, maybe it takes a minute to kind of figure out where you want to settle. But once you do settle, it should feel like a pretty noticeable release. And you're just going to land there, take a few breaths to start. You can do this with your legs straight if you prefer. I like knees bent. That feels just more comfortable in the lower back, I find. Take a few deep breaths to settle into your space, to settle into your body. My practice today will focus largely on the neck and shoulders. And in that focus, we'll spend some time doing a little bit of self-massage work, but we'll also do some gentle strengthening and a little bit of movement, a little bit of restorative. Okay, so stay with a soft quality in your breathing for now, and just begin nodding the head very subtly up and down, like you're saying a tiny little yes. Okay, now, of course, the more weight you lean back with your skull here into the balls, the more pressure you'll feel. But just a very small yes for now. Do that a couple more times, take a couple more breaths. And then pause the yes motion. Just find neutral. And now take a very subtle nod, no. Okay, so more of a left and right kind of motion with the nose. And I find it's helpful to think less of the whole head nodding no and more the image of just your nose doing that movement. So it is really quite small. And you might feel some tender areas as you move from left to right on either side of the spine, the top of the neck. Keep breathing. And then the next time you nod no over towards your left, then just pause there for a moment. So you're on a gentle angle towards one side. And now stay on that side, but add the nod yes. And this is where I find it gets really interesting. So you're off to either side, doesn't matter whether it's right or left really, but just adding a little nod yes while you're off to one side. And then you can release the yes, shift back through center and switch over towards probably the right or whatever direction you weren't just facing. And then stay on that side and add the yes. And while you're doing this, see if you can stay relaxed in your jaw so your mouth will be just slightly open. Your eyes might be closed or they might just be relaxed. And whatever feels good is fine. Okay, last breath on this side. And then you'll pause the yes, return back through center. And you feel your head centered on both balls again. And just pause there. Take a great big breath in. Open your mouth to release. You do that again in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Great. And you can use one of your hands if you'd like, just to help your head off of the props. Use your other hand to clear the ball and the block out of the way. And just release your skull down towards the ground. And once your head lands flat, notice how the neck feels there. And then you'll roll onto your side. It doesn't matter which side you start on. But as you roll onto either side here, I'm going to start on my left. So if that is easier for you to recall, then that's great. Start on your left. Stack your left shoulder right underneath your torso. Okay, so instead of getting kind of cozy and moving the arm and resting the head down on it, basically your head is going to kind of have to float in space. And then you're going to keep pressing down in the left shoulder so that your head remains in this floating position, but simply tip your left ear down towards the left shoulder. So not all the way down towards the ground, just ear to shoulder. And then you're going to lift your right ear to your right shoulder. Okay, so left ear to left shoulder, and then right ear to right, or the opposite if you're on the other side. Again, doesn't matter. And do this just a few more times for yourself. Your neck is likely to get tired, that's okay. Okay, and then the next time that your right ear is lifted towards your right shoulder, keep it there, and now turn your chin up towards your shoulder. Okay, and then you're going to release through center, so just looking straight out in front of you. Let your left ear drop towards your left shoulder, and then spin your chin towards your left shoulder. Okay, so that's this motion here now. So right ear lifts to start, and then you spin chin to shoulder. And then you release the eyes forward, left ear towards left shoulder, and chin down. Okay, this one gets pretty hard pretty quickly. So we'll do one more of each of these, up and down. Okay, and don't panic. If your neck is sore, it's just because you're engaging the muscles there that we often don't engage. Okay, it's not a problem. Okay, so now with your head still hovering, you're just going to do ear to shoulder, but slightly smaller. Think of it as more of a pulse, and you're going to go a little bit quicker. Okay, we're going to do this for about 5 more seconds. You're going to get a nice release here very, very soon. So little pulse up and down. One more breath. And then release your left ear, your left side of your skull, all the way down to the ground if it reaches. If it doesn't quite reach and you want a blanket underneath, that's great. And then you can reach your right arm up in space. You're going to let your right arm come behind you. You can roll slightly towards the back of your skull. And experiment with having your right arm a little bit higher up towards the direction of your head, or a little bit further down. I'm a little too close to the wall here, but a little bit further down towards your pelvis. And you can kind of steer the arm in space while your head is leaning back, and you should feel a nice opening along the side of the neck that was just working. Okay, take about 3 more breaths here. And from there, you can roll forward towards your forehead, press yourself up using your right palm. And we'll switch sides. Okay, so you can either roll over onto your other side. I'm going to continue to face the camera. But right shoulder is going to land right underneath your chest, so your head is kind of hovering in space. Keep pressing down with your right shoulder so your head is floating. And then you're going to start by lifting left ear up towards left shoulder. And then right ear is going to reach down towards right shoulder. And at this point in time, right, you're not just dropping the head towards the floor. So this whole time, your head is hovering. Okay, this side feels more difficult for me than the other side. Maybe one side feels easier for you than the other, that's fine. Okay, so lift and lower one more time here. And then the next time that your head, your left ear, lifts up towards your left shoulder, keep it there. And then spin your chin up towards your shoulder. And you'll take your chin forward again, recenter your head. And then right ear down towards right shoulder, spin your chin towards it. Okay, return your chin forward, parallel your head to the ground. Okay, and we're going to do that a few more times. So left ear lifts, chin spins, chin forward, recenter your skull, and then right ear dips, spin the chin. Okay, eyes forward, and then one more time each of those. So lifting and spinning, and then lowering and spinning. Okay, and then from there, once you've finished all of that, release the right side of your temple down to the ground, or again, use the blanket. Left arm can reach straight up in space. Let the left arm roll back. You can roll towards the back of your skull slightly. Okay, and again, your arm can kind of cactus higher up in the direction of the head, or if you've got the space, let it reach further down towards your pelvis. You can just enjoy the sensation of stretch along the left side of the neck here. Take 2 more breaths. Okay, rolling now towards the forehead. Use your left hand to help press you up. And then once you've come upright, take one of your blocks or even a folded blanket if you prefer underneath your seat. Just something so that your pelvis can be elevated. And you can sit with your legs crossed or your knees bent forward, just whatever feels most comfortable for you. You could also sit on a bolster if you'd like. And make sure that you have your strap or your scarf, your belt, whatever it is that you're using within reach. Okay, once your spine's stacked tall, take your hands around the sides of your ribs, kind of just underneath your chest. So thumbs wrapping around the back, fingers wrapping around the front. Stack your skull nice and tall here and breathe wide into the palms of your hands, into your fingers. And feel the centering as you exhale, so the narrowing of your rib cage from all directions. Take a few more breaths like that. Okay, so now you're really deliberately deepening the breath and and giving it a bit more direction in your body. Can you stay now with this deeper and deliberate breath quality? Release your arms into your lap. Okay, tip your head back in space, so lift your chin. And once your chin is lifted, jut your bottom teeth forward of your top teeth. Like you're stretching your chin up higher in space. And then release that, tuck your chin down towards your chest. And with this movement, really try to isolate your neck. So try not to let the shoulders come along for the ride. So head back, chin jutting forward, so bottom teeth forward. And then forehead down or chin towards chest, but spine staying nice and tall. Okay, let's do that one more time. And then return your head back up through center and just drop your right ear down towards your right shoulder. You return back up through the midline and switch. Left ear to left shoulder. And again, you're trying to isolate here. You'll keep going right and left a couple more times. Really isolating the neck, so trying not to let the shoulders and the ribs kind of come along for the ride. And now you're going to use those 4 points that you've just mapped out to trace more of a circle. And so as you return back up through center, tip your head back in space, jut your chin forward. Right ear towards right shoulder. Forehead down or chin towards chest. Left ear towards left shoulder. And then repeat. Now, of course, if you have a recent neck injury or, any kind of neck stuff going on, then maybe you scale back this movement a little bit. And you're just going to switch directions here whenever that makes sense for you, so that you can do a couple more circles in the other direction. And you might feel some really crunchy bits. You might hear some crunching. You might notice where there's quite a bit of tension. Good. Okay, so take your time, finish up that last circle. And then you'll use 2 to 4 fingers, depending on how much pressure you want. Place them right in the hinge of your jaw. Press firmly towards the middle of your face. While you're pressing there, just open and close your mouth a few times. Okay, and you can kind of experiment having your fingers a little lower, a little higher. Again, pushing in firmly, keeping them there, and just opening and closing the jaw. You can also take them a little further back towards your ears. Or even higher. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, and then you're going to come under the jaw. So it's going to feel like you're digging around, not so much in your throat, but kind of sending your fingers up in space. And think of this as massaging the root of your tongue. Feels a little bit weird. You can kind of poke around in there. And again, just noticing the sore spots. If you have long nails, this is kind of uncomfortable. Okay, and this actually is a connection. There's kind of the tip of the fascial connection down to the root of your pelvis. And so often you might hear a cue in a yoga class to relax your jaw and how that correlates to relaxing in your hips. So that's kind of what that stems from. Okay, and then one more little thing here for your face. Use your fingers, find your cheekbones, and think of massaging just underneath your cheekbones. Okay, think of pushing up with your fingers up into your cheekbones. You're gonna come all the way towards the middle of your face. This looks really weird. Okay. So all the way kind of in towards your nostrils and towards your sinuses, and you'll feel all kinds of gnarly little bits in there. Now I'm only using one finger when I get this close into my nose. This is an exercise that one of my friends and a fellow teacher, Scotty Mack, introduced me to. So dig around there and then use your fingers to pull the skin just beneath your cheekbones down, right? And this is where I let go of looking good on the internet today. That was one of Scott's jokes and it made me laugh. It's true. Okay, so keep pulling down until you work your fingers all the way back out to the edges of your temples or into your jaw again, and then do one more or a couple more if you'd like, opening and closing the mouth while pressing in with your fingers. Good. And then as you let that go, it feels pretty nice in the face. Kind of like doing face yoga, so you can just feel how awake and alert the muscles of your face are here now. Catch hold of your strap, except you're going to catch it behind your back, okay? And again, this works with like a towel or a blanket as well. Hold onto your strap. You're going to pull both of your hands over towards the right. So it's like you're really trying to hug your left hand as far to the outside of your right hip or your right waist as you can. And keep pulling with your right hand. And then let your right ear drop down towards your right shoulder. And you'll feel all kinds of stuff through the left side of your neck here. You can stay where you are, or you can take a super subtle kind of spin of your chin down towards your collarbone and a spin of your chin up in space, but all the while keeping your right ear heavy towards your right shoulder. Now, as you do this, if you get a little bit tingly in your left fingers, that's okay. If you're going totally numb in that left hand, then maybe release. Let's take 2 more breaths. Oh yeah, okay, here come the tingles. Okay, so as you complete your exhalation, you can release that. And give your left arm a little shake if that feels helpful. And then you're just going to switch. So again, holding onto your scarf or your strap with both hands, pull them over towards the left. Okay, so you're really pulling, especially with your left hand, to try and get your right hand as far to the outside of your left hip as possible. And then keep pulling with that left hand as you drop your left ear down towards your left shoulder. And just start here with a few breaths. Again, see if you can relax your jaw so your mouth can kind of hang ajar slightly. And then if this is already plenty, you can stay right where you are, or you spin the chin down slightly and up slightly. Keep breathing here. Again, if you're getting tingly to the point of feeling numb in your right hand, release. If it's like a minor heat or pins and needles kind of sensation, then that's probably fine to stay. One last breath. Good, and then you'll release. And you give your right arm a bit of a shake if that feels good. Good, and then take your strap into your hands a little bit wider than your shoulders. Use your breath in to brush your arms all the way up and overhead. And then as you cactus your elbows, let the strap go behind your skull. Think of your hands pulling out, your elbows tipping forward. Okay, arms all the way back up as you breathe in. And then just release them down as you exhale. And you'll do that a couple more times. So arms up as you inhale, pull out with your arms. Cactus your elbows. Think of tipping them forward. Send your fingers and wrists back. So nice stretch across your chest. Lengthen on your inhale. And release, breathe out. Let's just do that twice more. Try to keep your head stacked with your spine throughout. And see if you are able, once again, to isolate the movement as much as possible just through your shoulder joints so your ribs and spine aren't compensating. Good. Do one more for good measure. And then this time, if you want to hang out in that cactus position for a few extra breaths, you're welcome to stay. And invite the breath to move wide across the front of your chest. And when you're ready, release your arms. You can release your strap off to the side. You are not likely to need it again. And then you're going to make your way to lay on your belly. I'm going to do this seated because otherwise it's really hard for you to hear me. But basically you're going to lay on your stomach. Okay, you can tone your legs, stretch them behind you in space. And you're going to work one arm at a time with your forehead down to the ground. Okay, if you feel like you need to watch initially to see what I'm doing because it's not clear, then that's totally fine. I'm going to sit facing my back towards you so that you can see what's going on with my arm. Of course, if laying on your belly isn't available to you because you're pregnant, or if this just doesn't work for you laying on your stomach, then you can do this seated. But it is most effective laying on your belly because then you can't compensate by moving the ribs. Okay, so it's really telling. So left arm is just going to stay down by your side, forehead down unless you need to watch the first time. Take your right arm all the way up alongside your ear as you inhale, and you're going to think of hovering the arm just up off of the floor. You bend your right elbow as you exhale, like you're going to try to tap the back of your heart with your fingers, but don't actually touch your spine. Okay, and then release your right arm all the way wide out towards the side. You're going to internally rotate, so spin your thumb forward and then down, so you'll end up palm facing the ceiling. And then you're going to bend your right elbow as the arm sweeps behind your lower back. And again, think of reaching your fingers towards the area behind your heart, but without actually touching your back. Okay, so that's the movement. Simply inhaling to bring the arm all the way up. And all of this time, the arm is hovering off of the floor, bending your elbow like so you're going to tap right between your shoulder blades. And then lengthening your arm here, reaching it wide. Internally rotate so your palm turns to face the ceiling, and then swim the arm around behind you as high up your back as you can without touching your ribs. Okay, you're going to do that a few more times on this side. Okay, and if your right shoulder already feels quite tired, trust that you're not alone. It's hard work. You'll build a little bit of heat in this one side, and then you'll get a little bit of a rest. We'll do the other side, and then we'll release all of it using the balls again. Okay, maintain a steady breath while you're doing this. And assuming that you're laying on your belly, you're keeping your forehead down. Okay, see if you can keep your tail nice and long and avoid pushing the belly and the ribs into the floor. If you're doing it seated, then it requires a little bit more awareness that you're not compensating with those areas of the body, that you're really isolating the shoulder. Okay, do one last time, up and down. And then to release that, you'll just let the right arm rest beside you and take your right cheek to the floor. And if you're seated here, you'll just release your right arm down either beside you or into your lap and take your eyes out over your left shoulder. Recenter your skull, so forehead down. Right arm will stay down by your side. Engage your legs here. Scoop your lower belly as long as you're laying on the floor, on the mat. And then start with your left arm. So hovering it up off of the surface of the mat, off of the floor. Reach it all the way up alongside your ear. Bending your elbow here. Try to keep your elbow hovering as much as possible as you tap the space between your shoulder blades. Okay, you're familiar with this now that you've done it on one side, but again, be mindful. So internally rotate once the arm is beside you. Swim the arm around your lower back, and you might find that the back of the left hand comes up a little bit higher than the right if you're right-handed. Okay. If you're left-handed, then this is probably your tighter side. Okay, so you're going to keep going. It's super important, probably most important of all with this, is that you're breathing. Okay, most important with all things in life. And the next I would say is that you're trying to isolate the movement exclusively in the shoulder. So you're not pressing your belly or your ribs or your forehead down with, more force than is necessary. You're trying to keep the front line of your body engaged and isolate the movement in your left shoulder. And your left shoulder is likely to get tired. Again, it's not a bad sign. You might feel it get especially warm, which is useful before we stretch it out a little bit more with a couple of restorative shapes and some work with the ball. Okay, let's do 2 more passes, so twice more up and down. Okay, and this, you could do this, I guess, standing facing a wall as well. Not quite as effective. Really the most effective way is laying on your stomach. Okay, once you've finished the second pass around down behind your low back, okay, then you'll release the left arm beside you. If you're laying on your belly, just spin your left cheek down to the floor. And if you're seated, spin your chin over towards the right shoulder. Return back through center. You can use your hands to press yourself up gently. You make your way towards a tabletop position. Set your blanket down for your knees, just so that you have a little bit of padding, so you might open it up once or twice. Okay, pad your knees. And you're going to come into a simple kind of twisted child's pose here. So your knees can open as wide as you'd like. Now, of course, the wider you reach them, the more this is also going to come in through the inner groin. The narrower you keep them, the more you'll feel it across your lower back. I'd say have them at least as wide as your ribs, maybe slightly wider. And then you're going to use a block underneath your forehead. So if you want to measure that out, you can. Lowest height will be good. And walk your hands way out in front of you, as far as they can reach. And keeping your pelvis grounded towards your heels. It doesn't have to be touching your heels, but as far back as it'll comfortably sit. You just spend a moment reaching with your fingers like you're trying to spider them as far forward as you possibly can. Notice that dynamic underneath your arms and underneath your shoulders, through the armpits, along the sides of the rib cage and waist. And then you'll find the opposite dynamic, so you can ground your palms and energetically push your hands forward. And that'll shift a little bit more weight into your seat. You might experience this a little bit more in your lower back. And keep your right arm where it is. If you need to lift your forehead a little bit, you can. You're going to weave your left arm underneath, across your chest, but without twisting. So keep your forehead now back down on the block. And think of wrapping the outside of your right shoulder, the outside of your right armpit, down towards the ground. You drop the left shoulder out of your ear. And as long as you're working with your left arm pretty straight, so you're not just going to let the elbow collapse into a bend here, you will probably feel this a little bit through the outside of the left shoulder. I guess that depends on how tight you are in that area. If that's not an area of tension in your body, you might not feel a whole lot. That's okay. One more inhale. And then you can unthread your left arm. Again, if you want to lift the forehead a little bit, that's fine. Stretch your left arm forward and just take a moment in symmetry. Land your forehead back down. Notice the difference from one side to the other. Okay, where do you experience a little bit more space now? And then when you're ready, thread your right arm across. Okay, so the right palm will face the ceiling. And instead of rolling your chest open towards the left, wrap your left outer arm down like you're trying to keep your chest square towards the floor. You encourage your right shoulder down away from your ear and breathe along the outer line of the right arm, the outer line of the right shoulder. And again, if you're right-handed, it's not unusual for this side to feel a little bit tighter. As you complete your next exhalation, release your right arm forward again so that you find symmetry. Land your forehead down. Take a moment again to experience both sides. From there, you can draw yourself up once again to your hands and knees. Try to avoid dragging your knees in, so lift them gently and return them to center, just so that you don't strain the inner thighs. You can clear your block off to the side and roll your blanket into a long and narrow tube. And you'll come back to that in a moment. And just slide the tube off to the side for now, okay? You'll want to have one of your blocks within reach, about halfway down your mat, and you'll take both of the balls that you're working with, tennis balls or tune-up balls, lacrosse balls, whatever you've got is great, but take them out of the sock or the tote that you're using. And we're gonna do this again laying on our back, but I'll show you where you're gonna place the balls before we lay down, just because it's a little bit easier to see upright. So you're gonna place the balls in your upper traps, so not right on top of your shoulders, but if you were to roll them back slightly, okay, there's like the meaty part there right above your shoulder blades. That's where you're gonna pin the balls, okay? So you're gonna come lay on your back. Feet grounded, so knees bent, and then pin the balls in. You're going to do both at the same time, just for a question of efficiency and time. If I was doing this whole class just massaging with the balls, then we would do one at a time, but both at the same time also works. Whew. And if that area is tight, you may not need to do anything at all other than put the balls there and lay down. Okay, and if that is the case, then trust that there is enough happening without you needing to do a whole lot. Okay, maybe you take a couple of deep breaths. I feel like upper traps is an area that everybody is tight in. I don't really know anyone that doesn't hold tension there in their shoulders. If you know someone, I would like to know this human and know their trick. Okay, so a couple deep breaths just to settle in is great. And then you've got a couple of options, but so that we don't kind of go through too many of them, let's say that the first one could be tracing circles with your arms. Okay, and you can of course keep these circles quite small, or you can make them quite big, right? So they could come all the way down to the ground, kind of more like a snow angel tracing, if you will, or you can keep them much smaller and just up towards the ceiling above you. And again, if this feels like it's a lot, which it very well may feel like a lot, then stay with this. But if you're one of those lucky human beings that does not have a lot of tension here and you feel like you want a little bit more pressure, then you'll ground your feet and slide the block that you have underneath your pelvis. And you can use first or second height, that's up to you. But so now your hips are a little more elevated. You'll feel more pressure coming in with the balls. And then same idea. We'll keep it simple today. You can circle the arms around. Now, of course, as you do this, if you discover some other kind of movement pattern or some other kind of position that feels really interesting and that's where you want to stay, then that's totally fine. Okay? We'll take about 5 or so more breaths just to explore this. If you can recall what it felt like to breathe with your hands wrapped around your rib cage when we were seated earlier, see if you can bring that more expansive breath quality back into your body. Okay, one more breath. And then release. If you have your hips elevated on the block, I'll just suggest that you remove the balls first and then lift your hips to clear the block out from under your pelvis. If your hips were on the ground, you just remove the balls. You take a moment with your spine just laying flat on your mat. Feel it decompress a little bit. And then you can roll to either side to press yourself up You might want to put the balls back into the tote or into your sock, or just place them somewhere where they're not likely to roll away on you. And then you're going to bring in the rest of your props here for your final shape. So the blanket roll that you have, slide it around the front third of your mat. And depending on how tight you are across your chest and in your neck and your shoulders, some of you may need or may like having an extra blanket behind your head. Okay, so if you think that that might be nice for you, then keep your blanket nearby, your extra blanket nearby. And otherwise, you're going to bring your bolster in, or your folded blanket, or you could even use your blocks if you don't have a bolster, that would also work. You're going to slide that in so it's going to come in underneath the back of your legs. The blanket roll is going to catch you at the bottom of your shoulder blades. So where we just were with the balls was above your shoulder blades. Blanket roll is going to come in at the bottom of your shoulder blades. Okay, so that you've got a little bit of a lift with your heart. And you will likely feel a very gentle opening at the front of the chest. Now, if you're, as I mentioned, quite tight through the upper back and your chin is jutting way up in space, then prop your head up with something. Let your arms either reach wide into a T or a cactus position if you prefer, but your arms are on the same side of the blanket roll as your head. And then you can situate the bolster as close to your pelvis or as far down towards your knees as you'd like, and release your legs. Okay, legs can just release long. If you want a little bit more of a hip opener, you're welcome to draw the feet together, let the knees open into Baddha Konasana, but not necessary, only if you want. Take a deep breath in through your nose here. Open your mouth to release. Twice more like that. Breathe in. And breathe out. One more time. And then release the effort of the breath here. Release any holding of your tongue or your temples. Relax the front of your chest, deep down into your belly. Feel your hip flexors soften towards the back of your body, front of your thighs, the back of your calves, the soles of your feet. Everything here release. Okay, so without actually thinking about deepening the breath, okay, so I don't want you to deliberately deepen your breathing at all. But notice that the shape that you're propped up in is likely to be conducive to a deeper breath, right? That gentle kind of lift of the rib cage. Is likely to make it easier for you to breathe deeply. But that being said, try to stay relaxed with your breath, meaning you're not straining to steer it in any particular direction. Take one more breath where you are. And if you feel so completely relaxed that you can't possibly imagine moving, then you're welcome to stay. And otherwise, use only the bare minimum effort required to elevate your ribs enough that you can slide the blanket that's behind your heart out from underneath. You might like to drape it over your hips, or use it to cover yourself up so that you can feel warm and cozy. The props that are behind your legs can stay, and we'll take Shavasana from here. If laying on your back for Shavasana is not available to you, and if that's something that's very uncomfortable, or if you are pregnant, you're always welcome to lay on your side, or prop yourself up differently, or come up to seated to close. As you take your rest here for these final minutes of practice, let yourself soften into the space that you've created, through the neck, in your face, your throat, your chest, your shoulders, your upper back. And see if the dissolution of tension in those areas may inform a deeper quality of rest, deeper layers of release in your whole body. Okay, deeper breath into your body. And if you'd like to stay where you are and rest longer, I encourage you to stay. And otherwise, maybe you start just by simply rolling your head from left to right a few times. Just a gentle movement in your neck. And you can invite some movement back into your fingers and your toes when you feel ready. Stretch your arms overhead. Release a yawn or a sigh. And then take your time making your way upright to sit. Your hands can land in your lap, or you can join them at the center of your chest. Take a final clearing breath here, in through the nose. Release out the mouth. Thank you for your efforts and your enthusiasm.